This is officially the ugliest corruption story Australia has seen in a very long time. A bombshell inquiry has uncovered damning, stomach-turning allegations of industrial-scale rorting and rip-offs connected to Melbourne's Big Build projects. The worst part is the government tried to redact the most explosive bits. They actually tried to bury it, but it came out anyway.
As far as we're concerned, this is Australia. We're a democracy. It's supposed to be a democracy. If we want to withdraw our labour, we'll withdraw it. If they fine us hundreds of thousands of dollars, we'll say be it.
Hey guys, it's Scott here. I know you must be exhausted hearing about government failures at this point. One week it's budget blowouts, the next week it's new taxes, and then it's housing promises that simply don't stack up. Then it's another economic warning. I get it, there is scandal fatigue, but this one is different because this isn't about policy incompetence or bad forecasting. This is about allegations that billions of dollars of your hard-earned tax money may have been swallowed by corruption, intimidation, criminal infiltration, and outright rorting on projects you were told were being built for your future. There has been an inquiry, and there is now a report. And what is being alleged is that up to $15 billion, and possibly double that, of taxpayer money, your money, may have been burned through a system that insiders are describing as rotten from the top. And the details are not minor administrative mistakes. We are talking about allegations of extortion, ghost shifts, fake jobs, criminal figures embedded in sites, drug distribution on government projects, and behavior so shameless that it makes you question how this was allowed to run for years without someone pulling the handbrake. So in this video, I'm going to do what the media never does properly. I'm going to explain this entire scandal in plain English. I will break down what the investigation was actually looking at, what CFMEU and Big Build have to do with it, what the $15 billion figure really means, what was allegedly redacted, and most importantly, how this ties back to you, your taxes, your cost of living, and the financial pain Australians have been dealing with for the last 2 years. If you want property and the economy explained without spin, hit subscribe. Let's get into it. All right, let me slow this down and explain what this investigation is actually about in simple terms. This story starts with a report and an inquiry into corruption on taxpayer-funded construction sites in Victoria, especially on the government's infrastructure program called Big Build, which is the umbrella name for all the massive road and rail projects being built with your money. For example, Metro Tunnel, North East Link, level crossing removals, suburban rail loop, and all of that. The inquiry is looking at the corruption connected to the CFMEU and others, which is a construction union that represents workers on major building sites. On big government projects, unions have real influence because if work stops, delays cost millions, even billions. That leverage is supposed to protect workers and improve safety and pay. The allegation is that this environment became a perfect storm. Instead of money simply paying for roads and rail, insiders are now claiming parts of the system were infiltrated and manipulated. Corruption actually inflated project costs by somewhere between 10 and 30%, with a conservative estimate of $15 billion of losses to the taxpayer. And some insiders are saying it could actually be closer to $30 billion. And if you're thinking surely someone in government would have noticed this and tried to stop it, that's where this story gets even darker. Because the allegation isn't just that corruption happened. The allegation is that it went on for years while the government officials chose to keep the public in the dark. They knew about it and did nothing. Now let's talk about what the report actually claims was going on, because this is the part that should make you absolutely furious. Let's get this straight. You work very, very hard, and in many cases, up to half of what you earn goes to the government in taxes. This is your money we're talking about. Now, let me tell you what was actually uncovered, because this is where your blood should absolutely start boiling. The report exposed a system where taxpayer-funded infrastructure projects were turned into cash machines for corruption. There were so-called ghost shifts. This is where people were paid twice for the same hours. One payment from a labour hire company, another from the contractor, both funded by you, the hard-working taxpayer. There were roles created that did not need to exist. Delegates and site representatives earned $200,000 a year. Some of them are not even required to set foot on the worksite. If they did turn up, they were given air-conditioned offices with Foxtel and betting channels while being paid more than many engineers. One unskilled worker for a government site was making up to $15,000 a week in penalties and overtime. These are arrangements that insiders say were completely unnecessary. There were reports of individuals being paid $200,000 a year to essentially hold a stop sign. $200,000 for traffic control on projects you funded. One convicted killer was released from jail and almost immediately appointed to a health and safety role within the Victorian branch on a six-figure salary. A man who had just served time for manslaughter was put into a position of authority on taxpayer-funded infrastructure. Work sites linked to Victoria's Big Build were described as being used as drug distribution hubs. Outlaw motorcycle gang members were embedded around projects. Underworld identities were allegedly benefiting directly from the money flowing through these sites. Strippers were hired and paid to perform for night shift crews on taxpayer-funded projects. Let that sink in. While you were absorbing higher mortgage repayments, cutting back on groceries, while electricity, fuel, and insurance bills were climbing, while the government told you the budget was under pressure and that we all had to do our bit, your tax money was actually being poured into funding crime. The estimate was put forward as about $15 billion in inflated costs tied directly to this corruption, and that figure was described as conservative. Industry insiders pointed to cost increases closer to 30% on parts of the program, which pushes the potential damages toward $30 billion. That is money that could have gone to hospitals, schools, nurses, police, debt reduction, or genuine cost of living relief. Instead, it was swallowed by a system that insiders say everyone was too scared to challenge, or they were getting a piece of the pie. And the most disturbing part, this did not erupt overnight. Warnings were raised continually. Allegations surfaced. Briefings occurred. Yet the money kept flowing and the projects kept expanding. So the next time you hear about budget blowouts, about deficits, or the next time you were told taxes may need to rise or spending must be cut, remember this, because while you were tightening your belt, billions were circulating through a system that looks nothing like clean governance. Now here's the part that should generally make your blood boil. The government tried to bury it. The most explosive parts of the report, the sections that talked about the $15 billion blowout, the parts of the report that went into government inaction, the sections that questioned the leadership, these were removed from the report or redacted. The logic given was that those parts were outside scope. Outside scope. Come on, guys. You mean the cost to the taxpayers is outside scope? Government responsibility outside scope? When the number starts to get uncomfortable and when leadership starts getting mentioned, suddenly it becomes too sensitive. Now here is what makes it worse. This didn't just come out of nowhere. There were warnings for years. Industry insiders talked about it, contractors talked about it, people knew. There is no world where government officials did not know about this. Now, when the $15 billion figure is mentioned, the Premier says it's untested. She resists calls for a royal commission. She has ruled that out. What is she afraid of?
When did you first receive a claim about any corruption or any of this kind of behaviour on a big build site?
When allegations were raised with me, they were referred to the relevant agencies for their action. When allegations were raised with me, they referred them to the relevant agencies.
Premier.
She says it would delay progress. She says let's not slow things down. Slow what down? An investigation into where your money went? If you truly had zero to hide, you would welcome the strongest inquiry possible. Instead, what we saw was hesitation. We'll see someone actually dodging responsibility. And here is the most disturbing part. Albo's government representative was the one who directed that sensitive sections of the report be removed before it was released publicly. Those sections only came into public view because of the Queensland inquiry process. If that separate inquiry did not exist, those pages would have stayed buried. So now you have to ask yourself a very uncomfortable question. If this much made it out, how much did not make it out? How much was successfully buried? How much will we never see? That is not a small issue, that is a system problem. Not only have we seen corruption in the whole big build, we've seen it on NDIS, and right now we've got a budget hole of around 57 billion. How many billions of dollars, what other programs are also being rorted right now? Now let's bring this back to you. Governments don't generate money, they collect it. They collect it from you. They collect it from your pay packet. Whenever you spend money on your mortgage, there are some fees there. From your groceries, well, there's GST. From your fuel excise. From your investments, capital gains tax, and many other taxes and stamp duties. We're in the middle of a cost of living crisis. Mortgage repayments have surged. Rents are rising almost 3 times faster than wages. Energy bills are up. The RBA has warned that it could take years to undo the inflation damage linked to government spending. We've been told more rate hikes are actually on the table, and in the middle of all of that, this is what is happening. So let's be clear about something. Either leadership knew and let it happen, or leadership had no idea what was happening under their watch. Either way, neither is acceptable. And what makes people furious is not just the money. It's the silence, and it's the running from accountability and responsibility. Why aren't the top leaders fronting the media directly? Why are statements filtered through others? Now, obviously, what the government will do is try to let this blow over so that we will forget. This is one of the biggest corruption scandals this country has ever seen, and people are expected to absolutely just move on, and that's what they're betting on. You'll let this go, you'll forget about this, and it will become history. This is not political theater. This is about whether you can trust the people running a $100 billion infrastructure program with your money. It's about whether your taxes are being used to build your country and build your future, or being siphoned off into a corrupt system while you're being told to tighten your belt. Us Aussies absolutely deserve answers. We deserve transparency, and we deserve leadership that treats taxpayer money like it actually matters. Let me know what you think. Does this pass the smell test? Do you think we're getting the full truth? And if you want these breakdowns on property and the economy and how all of this impacts your financial future, hit subscribe. I do these videos every single day so that you can become a property insider. I'll see you guys at the next video.